A Soviet UFO crash with photo and video evidence, possible photographic evidence that Amelia Earhart survived her plane crash, pyramids on the moon, and more. These are strange historical photos that they tried to bury. So in 1969, reports started coming out about a supposed UFO crash in Russia, and this footage here was used in news reports at the time. Here we can see what is allegedly KGB and military personnel inspecting a disc-shaped object at a crash site. These images were later featured in the secret KGB UFO files, a documentary that brought a lot of attention to this incident. Some think that this footage and photographs are evidence of a genuine UFO, that the Soviet government recovered a crashed alien spacecraft. But it's never been proven. There's no definitive documentation of this case, so some think the whole thing was just a hoax. And yeah, it's hard to find solid information on this incident, but for some, that just makes the whole thing more believable. The Soviets weren't really known for being transparent about these things, and it's not hard to imagine they'd want to cover something like this up. To date though, no conclusive evidence has confirmed the authenticity of this footage or the photos. Is this a hoax, or are these images real, but were just suppressed? In 2017, a photograph started getting shared around that some believe showed Amelia Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, on a dock in the Marshall Islands after their disappearance in 1937. The image found in the US National Archives is supposedly a piece of proof that Earhart and Noonan survived a crash landing and were then taken captive by the Japanese military. Sean Henry, a former executive assistant director for the FBI, has analyzed the image and confirmed that it hasn't been altered or tampered with in any way. Earhart disappeared on July 2nd of 1937 during her attempt to fly around the world. 2 years later, she was officially declared dead. They figured her plane crashed somewhere in the Pacific, but if this photo is legit, it could mean she survived, at least for a while. The woman in the image does kind of look like Earhart, although it is a bit grainy and shot from a distance, and the man has a receding hairline, similar facial features to Noonan. I could see it. In the background, there's also a Japanese ship, the Koshu, towing a barge that happens to be about the same length as Earhart's plane. During NASA's Apollo 17 mission in 1972, astronauts snapped a bunch of photos while exploring the moon. One of those pictures, known as AS17135-2680, has caught a lot of attention because it seems to show a pyramid-shaped structure on the lunar surface. But what makes it even more suspicious is that NASA later blurred or altered the image in official archives. This has led some to believe they were trying to cover something up, that maybe this image is proof that they found something up there. Others argue it's just a natural rock formation, and what looks like a pyramid is really just the way the light and shadows hit the surface. You know the deal. NASA hasn't officially explained what's in the photo, which is only added fuel to the fire, at least online. Without a clear answer, people have come up with all kinds of theories, ranging from secret space programs to lost alien ruins. Whatever the truth is, the image is still one of the more mysterious photos taken during the Apollo missions, and to this day, it still has people debating what's really up there. On November 22nd, 1963, during the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in Dallas, Texas, numerous photographs and films were taken by spectators. Well, someone showed up in some of these photos and footage, a mysterious figure who would later be dubbed the Babushka Lady. She wore a headscarf and was standing in a pretty prime spot where she would have seen everything go down. But alright, whatever, lots of people were there. Obviously they're gonna be captured on camera. Well, what makes the Babushka Lady so interesting is that she's holding what looks like a camera, meaning she might have captured one of the clearest angles of the incident. Thing is, nobody knows who she was, and whatever footage she might have taken has never been found. The FBI even put out calls for her to come forward, but she never did. Some people think she was just a random bystander, but others actually think she may have had a reason for staying quiet. JFK conspiracies are a rabbit hole, but there are some that say the CIA wanted him dead, and if that's the case, they wouldn't have wanted any images leaking that could potentially incriminate them. Maybe the Babushka Lady and her photos were found, if you know what I mean. Either way, she's still one of the biggest unanswered questions questions from that day. The Black Knight satellite is a term used to describe a mysterious object believed by some to be an extraterrestrial satellite orbiting Earth. The legend dates back to 1899, when inventor Nikola Tesla reported receiving these unusual radio signals, which he speculated could have been coming from some kind of intelligent source. In 1954, newspapers reported claims by UFO researcher Donald Keyhoe that the US Air Force had detected 2 satellites orbiting Earth, at a time when no known satellites had been launched. Then in 1998, during the STS-88 mission, NASA's first space shuttle mission to the International Space Station, astronauts aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour snapped this incredible photo. What we see here is this strange object in orbit, which some claimed to be photographic evidence of the legendary Black Knight satellite. NASA later came out and said that the object was a thermal blanket lost during a spacewalk, but even still, the Black Knight satellite is a popular conspiracy, and some are still adamant that there's some ancient alien probe monitoring Earth, floating around up there, watching our every move. On the night of February 24th to the 25th, 1942, Los Angeles went into full panic mode. Just a few months after Pearl Harbor, the US was on edge about a possible Japanese attack. When military spotters thought they saw an unidentified aircraft in the sky, the response was absolute chaos. The city went into blackout, air raid sirens screamed, and the US Army started blasting anti-aircraft rounds into the sky, over 1,400 shells to be exact. But what were they even shooting at? Well, the next morning, the Los Angeles Times published a now famous photo showing searchlights converging on what looked like some sort of solid object in the sky. Some claimed it was a weather balloon, others said it was just mass hysteria, but UFO theorists had another idea, one you can probably guess. Maybe they were shooting at an extraterrestrial craft. The military, of course, downplayed the whole thing though, first saying there was just an enemy plane, then saying there wasn't, then saying it was a false alarm. But if nothing was there, why did trained military personnel keep firing for nearly an hour? To this day, nobody really knows what they were trying to hit, and that eerie photo keeps the speculation alive. Now, NASA doesn't usually like to admit when it alters images, but this one is hard to ignore. Back in 1976, during the Viking program, NASA's satellites snapped some of the clearest images of Mars yet. But according to some researchers, they also captured something they weren't supposed to, specifically a set of formations that strongly resembled the pyramids of Egypt. These supposed Martian pyramids were found in the Cydonia region, not far from the infamous face on Mars. For years, independent researchers have claimed that some of these pyramid-like structures appeared in early NASA images, but were later edited out, blurred, or conveniently classified. The idea, of course, being that NASA, or the powers controlling it, didn't want people asking too many questions about possible ancient civilizations on Mars. But NASA says there's nothing to see, just a case of pareidolia, our brains making patterns out of random shapes. But the thing is, NASA has confirmed that they do airbrush images when necessary, usually citing clarity issues. So what if the best evidence of artificial structures on Mars was erased before we ever got a chance to see it? Norway's Hessdalen Valley is the UFO hotspot that nobody really talks about, outside of Norway, that is. Starting in 1981 though, strange glowing lights started appearing in the sky, floating, zigzagging, sometimes shooting off at impossible speeds. Unlike most UFO cases, this wasn't a one-time thing either. These lights were consistent, sometimes appearing multiple times a week. And in 1981, one of the most famous photographs was taken, capturing a glowing orb hovering in the sky. The Hessdalen lights have been studied more than most UFO phenomena. Scientists have actually set up monitoring stations to track them, but still, nobody can agree on what they are. Some theories say it's some weird plasma reaction caused by the valley's unique geology, whatever the hell that means. Others think it could be some kind of military experiment, and of course, there's the idea that these are actual alien craft doing whatever it is aliens do. And yes, these lights still show up to this day. Even with all our modern technology though, nobody can fully explain what's going on in Hessdalen, and that 1981 photo remains one of the best pieces of evidence that something unusual is going on up there. In 1919, an old-school Royal Air Force squadron lined up for a group photo at their base. Cute! But when the photo was developed, there was an extra face in the shot, one that shouldn't have been there. Smack in the middle of the back row, there's this guy who wasn't supposed to be there. Was it the janitor? No, it wasn't. This was a man who multiple men in the squadron swore was their old friend, Freddy Jackson. Problem is, Jackson had died just 2 days before this photograph was taken. And on top of that, his funeral had been held on the same day they snapped the picture. The theory is that Jackson, not realizing he was dead, showed up for the photo just like everyone else. Now, some say this is a case of double exposure, which was a common issue in old photography, but that sounds like a lame explanation to me. This is a pretty clear photograph. It's not like Freddy looks like this faint, ghostly figure. There's clearly a dude standing there. So, to this day, nobody's been able to debunk this one entirely. In December of 1964, French photographer Robert Lesseric and his family reported encountering this massive tadpole-like creature in Stonehaven Bay in Hook Island, Australia. Lesseric captured several photographs of this creature, which appeared to be up to 80 feet long. The images are pretty spooky, showing what looks like this dark, elongated thing resting on the seabed. Lesseric claimed that as he approached the creature, it opened its mouth and moved toward him, causing him to make a quick getaway. Now, skeptics have tried to explain this one away, saying the supposed creature could have been a large mass of marine debris, a deflated skyhook balloon, or just an elaborate hoax, but what do you all think? With all that said, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.